Listeners who didn't wish to hear about such things should turn off their radios.
Welcome back to Predictorama 2026, my annual attempt to predict the future of big tech, AI, and innovation. While most people like to start off the new year with resolutions and gym memberships that are absolutely going to fail, I like to start mine off with a turducken of speculation. This year, I've prepared 6 predictions, and so, with no further ado, let's jump into prediction number 2. Amazon's next AWS is robotics. Before we unpack that, we need to lay some groundwork. AWS, short for Amazon Web Services, is Amazon's biggest profit engine, generating over $100 billion every single year. Roughly a third of the internet now runs on AWS, which is just wild. I mean, everything from Netflix to your weird uncle's conspiracy theory blog, AWS really has become the rails of the internet. But the most interesting thing, at least to me, about AWS isn't the scale or the capability, but how it actually started. AWS didn't begin as a product at all. It began as internal tooling. Amazon was simply trying to solve a massive operational problem, e.g., how to reliably host and manage servers for its own website so that it wouldn't collapse every time somebody tries to buy socks on Black Friday. That work got expensive, then it got sophisticated, and eventually it got good enough to actually sell. So Amazon took what was once its largest internal cost and transformed it into its largest source of profit. That move is corporate jiu-jitsu at its finest, and it tends to happen under very specific conditions. First, the capability becomes mission critical internally. Keeping the website up if you're Amazon, that's pretty important. Second, it reaches a massive scale, and then third, it becomes operationally miserable for competitors to replicate. When those conditions are actually met, Amazon stops seeing it as a cost, and it starts seeing a product. Which brings us to robotics. When most people hear the word robotics, they think of science fiction, humanoids, flashy demos, videos that look incredible, right up until the robot collapses off stage like a fainting Victorian child. But demos and speculations, as cool as they can be, are really no longer the interesting part. Robotics is fundamentally changing. There's this fusion that's happening between AI and physical robots that's ushering in a whole new era. For decades, robots were hard-coded machines, narrow, brittle, they were easily confused by anything unexpected. A single misplaced box, and the robot would spiral into what can best be described as an existential crisis. Today, and I mean quite literally as of today, because this is cutting edge, robots can observe tasks that happen in the real world, use that observed data to run simulations virtually, optimize through machine learning, and then deploy that learning across an entire fleet of robots. That shift from scripted motion to systems that learn, that is very real and very powerful. As potentially revolutionary as all that tech is, I actually believe the winner here isn't going to be who builds the coolest robot, as odd as that might sound. Instead, it's going to be whoever can turn robotics into infrastructure. Because the technologies that often end up reshaping industries, they don't always win by being impressive on a stage. They win by being reliable, scalable, and so boring that nobody even bothers to clap during a demo. And boring in this case is a superpower. Amazon already operates more than 1 million robots, which is more than any other company outside of manufacturing. That is not a pilot. That is not a demo. That's a planetary scale robotic workforce running nonstop inside of real warehouses, moving real products for one of the largest companies on Earth. Amazon is on track to have as many robots as humans in their warehouses. And already today, about 75% of their global deliveries are assisted by robots. At this point, robotics isn't an experiment. It's core labor infrastructure. And that didn't happen by accident. This all started back in 2012 when they acquired Kiva Systems and fundamentally rewired fulfillment. If you've ever been to an Amazon warehouse, it's pretty wild. The employees, instead of running around, they stay in one spot, and fleets of robots swarm around them, bringing them the products that they need. It is deeply, deeply efficient. a little too efficient. That reframing, though, of having robots come to you unlocked a decade of compounding automation and efficiencies. This is where people often point to companies like Boston Dynamics, and rightly so. They really are leaders when it comes to robotics research. But they specialize in low-volume, high-complexity robots, often deployed one site at a time. They make remarkable robots, full stop. But it's not infrastructure. Infrastructure wins by being a little boring, by being dependable, repeatable, and everywhere, like electricity or water. Regardless, the hardest problem in robotics doesn't appear to be motion anymore. I think it's orchestration. Coordinating thousands, then millions of machines in real time, routing tasks, managing traffic, recovering from failure, optimizing continuously under peak load. Amazon has already solved that problem, not in a lab, but in production. In 2024, Amazon introduced an internal AI system called Deep Fleet, which coordinates its army of robots and improved efficiency by about 10%. Repeat, 10%. At Amazon scale, that is a transformative number. Further, analysts estimate that these systems could deliver up to $4 billion in annual savings. And when internal capabilities become that powerful, that's when Amazon tends to ask their very favorite question: should we sell this? That sounds like the AWS moment. And the spending patterns, they back it up. Amazon's CapEx jumped from roughly $48 billion back in 2023 to $125 billion last year, with most of this going towards things like data centers, custom chips, fulfillment automation, and robotics-ready infrastructure. In other words, Amazon is standardizing, scaling, and hardening this core capability, which is exactly what you do right before turning infrastructure into a platform. This just all feels so familiar to me. AWS didn't win because Amazon had the best servers. It won because Amazon learned how to run fleets of servers better than anybody else, and then charge everybody else rent for the privilege. Robotics is now at that same inflection point, which brings us back to the prediction. Amazon will do with robotics what it already did with AWS and a number of other services: turn an internal operation into a massive white label infrastructure business. Not because Amazon necessarily wants to be a robotics company, but because this is what they always do. When a dependency becomes mission critical, when a cost becomes large enough, when an internal capability becomes impossible or brutally painful for a competitor to replicate, Amazon integrates it and then they sell it. We'll see. If you like this video, please hit subscribe for more thoughts and predictions on AI, big tech, and innovation. Minimal hype and just the right amount of doom. Stay tuned.
Let them have it. Yeah.